present are present. The purpose of the work session is to receive operational reports from the administration. We will begin with business software solution proposal presented by Jonathan Balls.
No, it's up to you. It's up to you. There's a memo in your packet that is from Mr. Smart and Ms. Minor as well, so.
Okay, well, we welcome you too.
So, I guess I'll start with a couple, some definitions. Again, when we say business software, this is the big software that handles everything from our employee records. This handles, obviously, flows into payroll. This handles our budget. This handles all of our vendors. This handles all of our bill paying. Everything under the sun there. And so, yes, I mentioned employees, but yes, everything with human resources. The evaluations and so forth. And so we're currently on a system called Apex, and it has worked well. It has worked really well for us. That being said, we feel it's time to explore change. Listed there, maybe some improvements that we might be able to realize as we're transitioning to this. There are, because of the state reporting requirements, there's really three major vendors, and so we've evaluated them all. I had used the smallest of the three in my previous school district, and then the two larger ones we had come in and to give presentations. And so looking at numbers, again, I'm just going through this memo, and please, Carl and Brenda, jump in anytime there, that had demonstrations where we brought in the full team to kind of look at those so we could get their input in that as well. We wanted to see them live in action, and so we were able to go up to Idaho Falls and see one of them, and the other one we actually zoomed into a very large school district in Missouri and had them share their screen and show us live what that would look like. And so you'll see the numbers at the bottom there. Again, it's a very healthy sum, especially because of it's the one-time installation. This involves both, of course, training, setup, even conversion of our existing records so that we could retain, obviously, those records that we'll need to in this new system and so forth.
So they actually send personnel and.
Correct.
So we have 9 days of on-site training that 9 days of on-site training that we can use as part of the package, and then many more hours of training that will come through webinars, Zoom meetings, all of those types of things. One of the main reasons that we felt like Skyward was a good option for us is the fact that we will be the first district in the state of Idaho that will be using the new all web-based version. And with that comes, I'm sure, pros and cons, right? You know, you're also the one that has some of the glitches, but in the big picture, you're also the one that has the most support, because they'll be wanting this to spread out, because this is is used across the state of Washington. Like we talked about, we visited with a school district in Missouri and those types of things. So Idaho, again, there's parts of Idaho that are using the program. It's just not the new program or in its entirety, such as Idaho Falls is where we went and were able to look at parts of it. But this will be the whole version, the new version, and our district will be the first to be able to implement that. And if you notice the implementation date, because of all of the prep work that has to happen and the fact that they won't be ready, if you notice, it will not take place until December of 2023.
Oh, that's a year and a half away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how, is this going to be a big transition for the teachers, new learning new stuff, or is they going to transition pretty easy to this?
So this actually will not impact the teachers. This
Okay.
would impact, obviously, the district office
Right.
staff and then the school building secretaries as it pertains to their finance. This is the money, this is the human capital there.
So the teachers will be able to just keep right on doing what they do?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Perfect.
I'll share some numbers. Approximately, there's 46 school districts that use the Skyward product, and around 26 in the state that runs that use the Tyler product. And so,
I've got a question.
Sure.
Software's in my background.
Sure, please.
So is Apex not, and I love the idea of a web-based, fully, I mean, that's the way everything is going, and it certainly makes it accessible and certainly easier on IT support, so totally understand that. So did Apex just not have that? Was there not sufficient upgrades? I mean, to completely rip and replace, that's a huge
It is.
commitment.
Definitely.
And so that's what I guess what my question is the investment and when did we, not having the history, when did we get into Apex? How long were we using that product, and are they not supporting upgrades?
I think that's,
I see smiles, so.
He is,
There you go.
Carl is.
I mean, like I said, innovation, technology, I'm all for it, but just wanting for our benefit, to
Okay,
understand the history.
I've been
of
around
that.
long enough that I can probably give you more details than any of the rest of these folks would be able to tell you. We have been running the same software package since the late 80s.
That answers a lot right there. I used to sell WordPerfect, so that's just my.
It ran on a mainframe. It sat back here in
Right.
actually where HR is right now, and it probably took up as much room as that desk right there.
Right.
And over the years, they've changed it, so it's now based upon a SQL server.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a SQL server process. And the CAST / it used to be called CAST, then / Apex. Over the years, they used to have a fairly decent user base, and it has slowly eroded to other products. And so
So it sounds like their own
it-
development is not.
it has served us well, and I like it because I know the ins and outs of it. 'Cause like I said, I've been around with it 30-plus years now, so I can get around in it and do the things I want to do and things we need to do, and it's easy to do. As the group would say, it's time to move on to something that is more supported, more. There are more users around. We are the only user in this part of the country, as far as I know. There used to be one in Salt Lake area and one in Wyoming, but they're long gone as well. So we are the only user here in this part of the country.
So they didn't move on to web-based?
It is web-based. It is.
It is.
It is. So that part is what I want to say modern, I guess is what you want to say. But like I said, we are the only user in this part of the country. It's nice to have others who you can rely on to help with you if you have needs. And so that's one of the big pluses for going to something that is used statewide.
I'll give Carl credit, because this was a story that was before that one of our users called Apex customer support, and they said, "Doesn't Carl work for your district?" Oh, yeah? Well, why didn't you go ask him? Because Carl has so much knowledge, and obviously he will be so instrumental in this.
And
so.
we elected to do a January cutover because of the summer months. There's really two times where we can cut over, July and January. July is the fiscal year, and there is a lot going on in the summer, and we did not want to deal with a project like this, cutting over during the summer months. And so that's why we elected the January date. So this is why you see the December 2023 here.
So does this annual cost encompass support, technical support, and that's part of it
Like
as well?
ongoing?
Ongoing,
Correct.
not just the installation.
So it's not even this December, it's a year from.
It is. And that's what, we, you know, as we kind of talked about kind of what it looks like going forward, I mean, there's a lot of decisions to make. I mean, it would be a set monthly meeting of, you know, setting up, basically they're customizing, you know, their software that's customizable to every school district, but customize it to us and look at our processes. That's, I believe one of those that, you know, we'll have the opportunity, because of the lengthy time, is, okay, can we improve this process that maybe is outside of, you know, the business software, but that feeds data into the software, that maybe we can improve that process and really, you know, help some other areas of the district.
One of the other things is, as you can see, there's a bit of a price difference between the two, and we really felt like that when we met with both of them, that we couldn't go wrong either way. Do you know what I mean? In the sense that they're both pretty similar in most respects. The big thing with Skyward that was really nice to be able to see is just everything it looked like the same program all the way through. Do you know what I mean? It was very systematic. There was lots of ways to catch errors prior to it going live. Like, they have modules that you can look at the information prior to it going live so that we could make sure that, you know, the information was put in correctly. Those types of things were big pushes for us with Skyward. But in all honesty, you know, we probably would be okay either way. But as you can see, Skyward is a little bit more economically feasible.
So then, I guess what I haven't heard was Apex considered. You know, I mean, are you using the most advanced whatever they have today and it's falling short? I mean, is that really?
We are using the most up-to-date version. So,
Because I mean, yeah, I mean, it's,
and there, as we look at the packages, you know, one versus another, these two have newer options, like, for instance, we're starting to do a lot more with Amazon. It has ways to make sure you get Amazon, what's the word I'm looking for, the shopping cart. There's an interface with that, so you don't have to deal with doing POs and trying to track those as they come in. What are some of the other bigger ones?
So for me, from my experience, it was that part that Carl mentioned, that, okay, we're the only one, not only in the state of Idaho, but in the entire, you know, this side of the country. And for me to have that, again, what I'd used previously is to have that support. I can call a neighboring school district, hey, how do you do this? You know, I need to do this in payroll or do this in budget. And of course, through their salesmen, we'd already been reach both software vendors had reached out to there's user groups in the state of Idaho that have even reached out to us and want us to join them because, you know, we're a larger school district and could benefit, or they could benefit from us being in their group, and we would benefit from theirs. And so just having that a little bit more, networking in the state of Idaho, at least, is something that
Sure.
was valuable.
And I can tell you, by virtue of talking with Doug and Jonathan here, there are some processes that we've grown in-house over the last 10 years, and one of them being IC. Apex doesn't have an IC module, create
What does that
IC
stand
data.
for?
What's that?
I see, what is that?
That, the state reporting we do every
Oh, okay.
month.
ISEE.
Yeah,
Oh,
IC.
okay.
We've talked about it during our board meetings. It's a 4-letter word, and we all cuss it.
What does it stand for, Carl? There's a test.
Idaho
Student.
I don't remember, but it's an information.
Enrollment.
Excellence versus something for
Excellent in education or something.
There you go. And, okay.
It's paid. And Apex does not have it. I've just created my own data collection and processes to create a nice database that we upload. It works very well. But if I were to get hit by a bus running across the street,
Win the
for
lottery.
Twinkie, yeah.
We like to say,
There you
win
go.
the lottery.
That's a much
Hit by the
better-
bus, you don't say that.
We've been using Carl.
If you win the lottery, then,
Yeah.
yeah, you're no longer.
Because
Say
I'll buy
that.
Twinkies, but the bus is faster than I am, so. But that being said, that, I know Doug's talked about that, and Jonathan, I don't want to be doing what you're doing if you're sitting somewhere and capable of doing it, so.
Okay.
So, those are just some things that we've looked at as we've gone along, so it's time
Great.
to move along.
So again, this is just for information, but as Brenda mentioned, we would recommend, transitioning to that Skyward product.
And this will come up next week.
Yes, so this
Yeah.
would be up for action next week.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can think about it, ask us more questions, or in between.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda is Outdoor Athletic Facility Planning Committee, or overview by Tanya Wilkes. Take the heated one, huh?
Right. Hey, I'm just glad that the roads were good for me coming back from Boise this morning, so really
Oh,
good.
hard too. I'm glad you made
I
it.
just wanted to, we updated the information, and Courtney actually emailed you today with the updated video. Courtney's amazing. She makes me do a podcast that I truly enjoy. Everybody loves those things. Anyway, we're really getting that information out there, and we know that we have done due diligence putting it out there, and sometimes it just gets overlooked because of things that were going on in the last couple of years. So this flyer's available on our website, the podcast, the video, all the PR information that was in the paper and so forth is connected there. I was just talking earlier last week, it kind of planted a seed. We actually started the road show at the middle school, so we went to Hawthorne and actually spoke to the staff and let them know what was going on. Even though we felt like the information was out there, we just really wanted them to be able to ask questions. And it was interesting, some of the questions they asked were things that we've been doing since the time we've had track. And so I think what you do a part of and what you're not a part of, sometimes you just don't know what's going on over here or outside and so forth. So it was awesome and a great time. And we go to Franklin Middle School tomorrow, and so we're hitting all the middle schools and providing that information, because those teachers are the ones that get that information out there as well. Just a really quick recap. You guys probably could help me with this now, but 5-year timeline, we're on year 2. We're definitely going through some growing pains on construction. This is new to me with, finding out all the hurdles that we have to go over. But things are going well. We have, the turf going in. If you haven't noticed, in Idaho Falls, the same turf company has actually started last week, so they beat us to the punch on having that first dig, but that's okay.
Are we
Hopefully.
doing something for the first dig?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The podcast was the kickoff, so yes.
There you go.
And we'll include lookout in those media coverages as well, because we definitely want them to be recognized as we're going through this. We do have, we met with the engineering on the Highland baseball last week as well, so good things are coming that way. And then Century, those bleachers and scoreboard. So there's things going all over the district. But part of that 5-year commitment was, to do these in stages and so forth. And I feel like we've gotten a really great kickstart. We're on year 2, and to have one of them hopefully be completed by the end of the summer, I'm going to be optimistic. Is great. Any questions for me? I know you guys have been asking lots of good questions, and hopefully I've been answering them, and you guys are getting information that you need so that you can, again, answer those as the public comes.
I did have a question about, I'm going to say this first. I love the idea that you're using actual track material for those
The outer lanes. Mhm.
I really.
It's rubberized track with
Really?
lanes, so we'll have
Yeah.
the exchange lanes and the hurdle markings and everything, yes.
Yes, so
Mhm.
we can do the hurdles and,
Mhm.
as opposed to blacktop.
Mhm.
I'm really, really happy about that. And
Mhm.
to me, that was huge difference.
Good.
For a walking path versus actual track, even though it is more narrow, I mean,
Yes.
then we actually,
And used for walking path for those,
right.
the community, yeah, absolutely.
So that was good. But I did have a question. I don't remember who said this, but isn't there a problem with the lava rock at Century for doing bathrooms?
No, actually, the turf company actually said that, the moles out there, the voles, whatever, that turf is really good for them, and that actually is a good drainage system. So,
Oh,
no.
really?
Mm-mm.
So the bathrooms won't be a problem?
The
getting-
bathrooms is a different story. For the turf and everything
Yeah.
else.
Oh, yeah, the bathrooms. Did I say
So-
turf?
So there, we have some opportunities and venues that the engineering company is currently looking and navigating through what our choices are, and we'll present those to you. We can go to the school, we can go to the road. You'll have to have, like Jonathan, help me here, a pump system.
A lift station.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which
so
I have in
over by
my
the
house,
road?
and I don't know how it works. But anyway, yes. And
Well,
know,
Just because it's downhill,
right.
right?
So or we can have that tank where we, bury it and so forth. So, and so that we could, go through those.
So we could do a septic tank in our own drain field?
Uh-huh.
No, just a tank,
Jonathan,
just a holding
over
tank.
my head.
He's shaking his head.
Septic
No,
tank.
stop.
Your point is taken with the lava rock. You cannot dig up there. So the septic tank would actually be above the ground.
Oh,
Oh, that would be
But then, of course,
pretty.
not correct.
Paint.
We would
Yes, please.
encapsulate it. Accessible, but it
One huge
it would
rock.
look like a building. That basically we would pump, several times a day, but not a day, a year, or as
Oh,
needed.
Not a day.
Sorry about that, cut you
A
off.
lot of-
Things you never
We
see
knew
from
that.
the-
We knew that.
Correct, several
Yeah.
times a year or as needed,
Mm-hmm.
but that would be the least expensive, because even digging to the road, to the lift station that I think is out by the road, that would be a huge cost.
And you mentioned, I think, Tanya, you said either going to the building. What about just putting them on the side of the building and tying into the current sewage system? I mean, it's a little inconvenient to have to walk across the parking
And
lot.
that's the
But I would
trade-off.
not mind walking across the parking lot as opposed to the other option.
Sure. Well, and again, with that septic tank, obviously, you wouldn't smell it, it's not like.
I was wondering about that.
Anything like that.
Not the
No,
vault-
it's not like an
Not a
outlet.
vault toilet.
It was interesting, the engineers were talking about how it actually isn't an eyesore, because we're like, what? Knowing what it is. But it looks like a building. It wouldn't be labeled.
And that's less expensive than just tying into the building of Century and adding like bathrooms that open up out to the,
They have that currently. They have
Oh,
bathrooms on the outside. It's on the end of the smaller gym,
oh, I
and
didn't know that.
patrons just don't go that far.
Really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and so that's again the trade-off, we,
Oh.
and for concessions, because again, it's more cost-effective if that building is all together, the concessions.
The water,
the-
yep.
Oh,
The
to
team
have the-
rooms, for the water.
The water,
And the
and-
restrooms,
I see.
and put that closer to the field, I think.
Oh, I see.
And then would that be available during practices and
Absolutely.
all that? Okay.
Yeah, the locker rooms at Century are pretty small, so that was one of the things that was that multi-purpose, we're hoping to impact baseball, football. When you got football and volleyball and track, or cross-country and soccer trying to use those locker rooms, this'll help tremendously.
So how will it help the locker room situation? Will there be a locker room also in addition to the?
So what is going to be provided at Hawthorne is, the 2 locker rooms and a concession stand with the restrooms. That's the exact replica that we'll have at Century. 2 locker rooms with a concession and restrooms.
Oh, I didn't realize the locker room was.
And again, not to correct my colleague here, but I'm calling them team rooms, because there are no physical
Yeah.
lockers.
They prefer that. We went up to a bunch of different schools to walk through what's working nowadays instead of kind of just keep doing the same. And like at Madison, it literally is a room with folding chairs. So they can multi-purpose. They can have it for football or have it for, a team room to do. And then in the corner is the athletic trainer facility and things like that. They don't use
No
lockers anymore.
puppies,
That is
stuff,
so
they just
nice.
leave it on.
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
And so the kids have to take their stuff home every night, or?
They typically do, and especially with, the pads and all those kind of things. We talked about cubbies, those are always options, but they talk about, one, it's not locked up, so a cubby really didn't
Mm-mm.
fulfill
Right.
purposes that they needed,
My boys brought their pads home every day
Mhm.
anyway.
or left them in their
but left their
vehicles.
stinky clothes in the locker. It made me crazy.
Yeah. And so, you have your
ventilation.
visiting,
Oh,
and
it's
then
so
for
bad.
track, you got the girls and boys, soccer, girls, so multi-purpose, that was key.
Very
I
good.
like that
Mhm.
team room idea.
And truly, as we're growing, this is the, first 5 years type thing, Century's Gym, I don't know if you've ever been in, it's pretty small.
Mhm.
And, that's one of our needs down the road is to expand that. And so those things like you were talking about, Deanna, if we do things right outside, it kind of limits the future of what maybe we could do for a bigger gym opportunity in that area as well.
Oh, I
Swimming pool.
that makes sense.
That's what we really.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good questions, though. And those are hurdles, like I said, that we're definitely overcoming.
Are we gonna be able to change this timeline at all? Because our situation, when this 5-year plan was put in motion, is completely different.
We're,
Was,
yeah,
as far as money.
we're ahead of schedule. We're actually a year ahead. And I'm hoping as the facility, what we're running up against right now is contractors and
Product and people.
in product, like to get you'll correct me, the steel beams and so forth is 14 weeks out. It's like, holy moly, So those are the things that might hold us back a little bit, but I'm hoping that as we build this and we are exposed to how awesome these facilities, that we'll have some more sponsorships and might be able to do it pretty
Maybe
quick.
We should buy the trusses right now,
Yeah.
because I think they're 18 months out.
The contractor needs to do that, and that's what we're hoping to get done very soon.
Right, yeah.
Yes,
It's,
yes.
So Tanya, how do you feel like the reception at Hawthorne was regarding the track?
It was, well, Courtney, you can help me with that too. It was overwhelmingly excited that partly too, it's in their backyard, like
Right.
they'll be able to go out there and practice and so forth like that. But they were pretty dang excited that, that we were putting a lot of energy into outdoor athletics. They haven't seen this big changes going on for quite some time, and so they're excited to see things start to evolve.
so will they be able to have access to that track and football
Absolutely.
field, like during the day,
Mhm.
lunchtime and all, it won't be locked?
Lunchtime, probably not. They have enough, and we've, our mindset is to make sure that Hawthorne doesn't feel not part of the voice, that we're creating Foursquare and all kinds of different activities for lunchtime. And they don't want kids, being a principal at Irving, I don't want kids like everywhere,
Mhm.
so they don't go out there now.
Mhm.
They stay in that kind of backyard area where the basketball courts are, in that grass area where
So
those,
that'd be different. than
so it's no
Franklin.
different than what they're doing
Oh,
now.
okay, because Franklin, I know that's where they are. That's just where everybody
Correct.
is.
But they've never
They,
done
they
that.
don't do that.
They don't do that currently. Right.
This may be a few years down the road, but is this going to require additional type of employees to manage this, or is that just going to come back under the umbrella of?
So, for game management piece, it definitely is, and I think part of that, like I keep talking about, we are going to create a bigger revenue for not renting Holterine and so forth, but that'll help cover the management piece of that. And I don't know if you guys know how much a helmet costs nowadays, those types of things, right? We're not in the business to make money, but that management piece will be more doable. But this is going to add to, taking care of the facility. Turf isn't hard to take care of. It doesn't water, we don't mow. Basically, if you will, you rake it,
Yeah.
maybe once every 2 weeks. And it takes about an hour or so. So that's pretty, low maintenance compared to right now where we water and we mow and things like that. So that's a good trade-off. The added would be, we are going to use those locker rooms. So that is going to, more janitorial services to clean those locker rooms. The concession stands, we already, as facilities in the schools, as we sell food and so forth, part of that is you clean up and you take care of your area. So the added big feature would be is the locker rooms and cleaning those and maintaining those.
And I smiled because we literally had that meeting last
week.
week of, okay, let's look down the road, see, and we met with our maintenance coordinator and the custodial foreman to see what type of needs we currently, what we currently can maintain, and okay, do we need to add an extra person that would be in charge of maybe just these outside facilities?
Not huge undertaking, but yes, because there's 3. Well, there will be 3.
Right.
So,
And then
yeah.
concessions, will that be
School run.
out? It'll be, no.
So right now, like in each school will have a little bit of a voice in that, but right now, all the schools have like, during basketball season, soccer coach and program will come in and run concessions and they get a commission off of that. So it goes back to their programs, kind of like a fundraiser for them, if they
Sure.
will.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And during, volleyball season, girls basketball will run concessions. And so we actually right now have an activities clerk. We actually fund somebody to help put on these programs. So, supplying the concession stand, going out and getting those and making sure they have, candy and pop and so forth, and making sure that the ticket people are there and the game management piece. The ADs have a lot on their shoulders. So we currently have
Activity manager.
Thank
I
you.
think is what we
Yeah,
call
I
it.
was looking for the right wording, but at each of the schools currently.
And so they would just take on.
Mhm. So a lot of the parent groups, in the past, and so we could see a new spark of interest, the parents coming in and supporting. And that was, a big concern of where that concession stand was, so they could see the game while they're, doing things, selling candy and things like that. It's important to them to get people to.
So then
up
you'll
and do
open that up when you rent the field to other groups? Will you allow them to use the concession?
That's a very good question, and these are new avenues we're going down.
Yeah.
Like what's the cost? And, we definitely want to be able to just help maintain it. Right now, that's kind of what Hallowell does, but then you get the parent group bought a lot of the things that are in the concession stand, so then they kind of don't use my stuff. Yeah. So, I can see that happening, or those are great opportunities for, football to go in and run concessions while we're renting it and make some money. So we definitely need to work through what that might look like. I know when we rented Davis Field, they allowed us to use the concession stand, but really nothing inside the concession stand. So we had to bring everything.
Yeah.
Maybe the hot dogger, maybe you know what I mean? So maybe we'll do something similar to that.
Very good.
So what equipment is needed for the turfs? Is some kind of a raker or sweeper?
Yeah, and it comes with it. When we purchase the turf, it will
have its own.
it comes with it, and they will train us on it. Truly, it's like a golf cart to pull it. I thought it would be like a side-by-side type thing, and they said, no, that's actually too much power, all-wheel drive. So it's,
So the side-by-side issue isn't a thing anymore?
no, when we were talking to it, because the school is looking for like a sponsor and so forth, or looking at what to buy, and it literally is like better to explain it, is like a golf cart. It's just a utility.
And don't
where
we
it's-
already have that for the emergency, like when?
We have one at Highland and we have one at Century. Pokey never had one. And so, yeah, that's why they're currently
We can just
looking.
use that as a
Mhm.
dual purpose,
Mhm.
the raker and then.
Not the emergency. So Portneuf is actually, over the trainers.
Mhm.
They, fully fund all of that. They have the equipment. We made our ticket booths big enough to store that equipment. They asked us, hey, make sure that we have some room where we could, and so our
The
ticket
Highlands
booths,
is already big enough,
Are-
that's the only one that's done, right?
yeah, and actually down below that garage is where they keep it right now.
Oh, it's
And-
not up in the press box,
No, because they need to be down on the field.
right?
So it looks like a gurney. It's like a little machine they drive out, and it's got that flatbed on it.
Mhm.
and that's what they use.
And then the painters that you talked to us about, the GPS,
Oh, the tank?
the tank, is that
Sorry.
what it's called? To paint
Yeah, that's pretty
lines for
cool.
the track. Well,
Yeah.
did you decide to just get one and then throw it on a trailer and, use it for?
Absolutely, that's what I would do, because, and that hasn't been approved yet, and we're working on looking into that, making sure that fiscally it's, worth that. But you could lease that for $10,000 a year, which includes all the paint, and you're right, it's Google Earth where you just put in the dimensions and it creates it. They said if you did 10 fields, like soccer, baseball, track, that it pays for itself. So we're going to look at those things, but we would only need one. Turf fields we don't need to paint, but we would need to for soccer fields, at the facilities at the middle schools and
Yeah, all
in
the
baseball,
elementaries
and
all of
yes.
that.
And we could add, it was interesting that Boise, said we just got excited about it, and we created lanes for the elementary to start kind of practicing track at the elementary level. Those are just avenues that would open up opportunities, but nothing that we've set in stone yet, just
Oh,
those
I didn't realize
conversations.
They were that expensive.
Mhm.
What's the kind of the range, do you know?
For,
They cost for
How much would one
tank?
cost?
for one tank was $40,000 for the machine to keep.
Oh, okay. So in-
But the leasing of it was kind of, a little bit more intriguing in the sense and feasible in the sense that it included all the paint, and then if something breaks down, they take care of it.
Oh.
Boise went to leasing. They didn't purchase, and they actually leased 4 as of this year.
And they feel like that worked better than purchasing?
Mhm. Mhm. They update them, they just took care of them. But definitely, we're not committed to that yet. I'd like to learn more, investigate more. I was just pretty excited coming back from the athletic directors meeting to learn how easy that was and how convenient, and like you use about a third of the paint's included, the manpower and things like that. But being a softball coach, that's part of, it's hard to take away that part of the ownership of painting those lines, it's hard to, get too spoiled, but
Yeah, well,
It would help
if
with
people
the-
just want to paint them, it's a lot cheaper.
but they could actually paint like logos and everything, so it's kind of cool.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Wow.
You have to pay for the graphics on the computer part of it, and I don't know the cost of those yet.
And
So
the-
those are
probably
avenues
the
that we.
colors.
Mhm. Good questions. Any others? Okay,
Thank you. We appreciate all you've done with that. It's
thank you.
pretty exciting.
Yes, thanks for all your time answering so many questions.
Okay, next on the agenda is textbook adoption proposal. Jakor.
Good afternoon. So as noted on your agenda, the current elementary science textbook program expires the end of this school year. So we were kind of left with a decision to make in terms of what we'll do moving forward with elementary science. We had budgeted for a full, I guess I would call it traditional textbook program, but after a little more reflection this year, we decided that as you know, we implemented a new K-8 math program this year. So there was a lot on teachers' plates this year. Next year at the elementary level, we're proposing going through the adoption process for English language arts, which will also be a pretty big implementation for elementary. So we kind of took a step back, and we had a number of teachers over the last several years using an online digital program to supplement the science curriculum called Mystery Science. And I'm kind of a big believer in equitable access to the same resources across the district. So this school year, we purchased Mystery Science for teachers to use as a supplement to their current science program. And we met with the STEM teacher leaders, those teachers from each of the elementary schools that were working on the STEM Up project, or STEM Up event that took place about a month ago, and asked them how they felt about just making the recommendation to utilize Mystery Science as our primary resource. And when I mentioned that to them, I saw all of their heads just bobbing up and down. It's fairly easy for them to implement in the classroom. It's laid out very well. It's really engaging for students. Most of our elementary staff utilized those lessons from Mystery Science in preparation for the STEM Up event a month or so ago. So they were really on board with moving forward with that recommendation for Mystery Science as the primary resource for K-5 science. I also have asked our teachers, and I have several parents who have reviewed the program, and I'm in the process of compiling that information for you, their feedback, and that'll be provided to you next week, along with a memo with the recommendation for adoption. I know Mrs. Judy had reached out to me and asked if as a board member, you can look at those materials, and you certainly can. I have one sample of the physical science, which I'm going to talk about here in just a moment downstairs, but for the Mystery Science, I do have a guest login, which I sent Mrs. Judy yesterday, and if any of the rest of you are interested in that, I could certainly send it to you. That adoption will come in with a 2-year subscription, and then purchasing supplies for teachers, that'll come in just slightly more than $112,000. Because that adoption is so much less than what we budgeted, that allowed us to take a look at an opportunity to consider the high school physical science adoption. Several years ago, when we adopted biology at the high school level, we also at that time looked for physical science, and the publishers just did not have any materials available. And this year we became aware of 2 programs from 2 different publishers for physical science. We got samples into the hands of all of our physical science teachers this year, and they reviewed both programs within their schools. We had the publishers come in for a presentation on March 28th, and then we met with the high school department chairs yesterday, and they unanimously are recommending to you for adoption Inspire Physical Science. It has a 2021 copyright, and that's published by McGraw-Hill. So again, I'll have all that articulated for you for next week for consideration of adoption. I also asked teachers to reach out to some parents at the high school level. Currently, I have 2 who have reviewed those programs. Today was the deadline to get that information to me, and I'm waiting on another one. I'm hoping it comes in time. But if I get it, I'll provide that feedback to you as well next week. And that adoption will come in, I just got a revised cost proposal today, and that'll come in at about $131,000. So again, both of those together are significantly less than what we had budgeted originally. So I'll be presenting those proposals to you next week for your consideration for adoption. Do you have any questions?
I do about I haven't had a chance to look through it at all, so I don't have any questions about the curriculum.
Okay.
But I did have feedback from a teacher, just randomly. She was wondering about the supplies and the kits, and so you mentioned that will, so currently they don't have that, is that right?
They don't have that. They
With the
have
pilot?
they have the kits that go with our current program, but
Oh.
you know, you use them over time, and then supplies kind of dwindle after time. So that was one of the requests that our STEM Up teachers had mentioned when we talked to them about it. Will we get the kits? And so we checked into the cost. The cost for that is about $80,000, which is included in that $112,000. And then the subscription is fairly inexpensive. So to answer your question, yes, they'll be
Oh,
getting the
that's
kits.
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Any other questions?
So is it a progressive, I mean, I'm just glancing at the website right now, and obviously it's just the trial,
Right.
pretty picture kind of thing.
Yeah.
But is it programming? I see that they're grouped by grades, and so do they progressively each year?
Yeah, they're grouped by grades and then also, or by grade, and then also by life science, earth science and physical science. So, in the past, what we've tried to do at the elementary level is identify specific units in each of those areas at each grade level, because we want the kids to have, you know, as wide of an exposure to science as we possibly can. So I suspect that's what we'll likely do again with this program. So we'll identify particular units or modules that we'll want each of the teachers to teach across the grades.
So this might be a question then for Lori, if full-time kindergarten, is that some of the kindergarten curriculum that might be used then?
Absolutely. I don't know what she's doing back there,
Okay.
but I'm really excited about that because, you know, in a shortened kindergarten day, they just
They
don't
don't
have
get it.
time for that or social studies. So,
That's great.
so yes, this will be available to them as well.
Very cool.
It sounds like a huge improvement
Yeah.
from what I'm getting, the feedback. I haven't looked at it yet, but it seems like it is a huge improvement.
I think it will be, yeah. So, all right,
Thank you, Chuck.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda is all-day kindergarten program proposal. Lori Craney.
Drum roll.
Drum roll.
I think I've been presenting on this since January, haven't I, since the legislature started meeting. And so, in your packet is in the addendum, is a memo that I've just highlighted some of the things that we've taken into consideration there. So basically, during the 2022 legislature did approve House Bill 790, which it's full-day kindergarten is how they, you know, it was touted in the, in the newspaper, and so, and in the media. And this is, what it really was a literacy funding bill. And it was signed into law by Governor Little towards the end of March. And it outlines how literacy funds are going to be distributed. And it doesn't say that you're going to be offering full-day kindergarten, but it definitely clarifies any ambiguity that might be in place on offering a full-day kindergarten program in your district or in our district. Gives flexibility in spending those literacy dollars, so that definitely is a way that they can be spent. In the little memo that I gave you, it outlines how the literacy funds are going to be distributed to the schools. And you know that there was an increase in literacy funds that was put into the budget. So through this bill, the literacy funds will flow to the districts. For one way they'll flow is through the number of students who are enrolled in kindergarten through third grade. And we'll know those numbers, they'll be based on the first Friday in November. So like next November, they'll base that, and they have a figure that they say for every student that you have, this many dollars comes. Then the other is for the number of students who improved or remained proficient on the state reading assessment, which is the ISIP or the IRI, and they'll look at it from spring of 2021 to spring of 2022. Or if there is no spring of 2021, some of our students have moved into the district, or our kindergarten students, they will just look at the students who are proficient at that, or no, excuse me, they'll look from fall to spring for those students. So, and then there's also a multiplier in there that gives additional funding for students who are proficient and also qualify as economically disadvantaged. So those are the ways that money will flow into our district. So then I rolled right into, well, what does that look like for our district? And I saw that Ms. Johnson took out some of my adjectives I have for the estimate there. There were several of them. It was a rough, conservative estimate. So she took out the rough because we don't have our data from November. And we don't know how many students are going to be proficient, and we don't have the comparison between those. So just, I need all of those qualifiers there, so when I was pulling these together, and I went very conservatively because I didn't want to overspend. So I figured that it would pull about another 1.3 million into our district with the new money through that formula. Hopefully, it'll be more than that, but I wanted to be, conservative in that. So then I went and looked, what's it going to cost us for that? And so if we look at the cost of full-time kindergarten teachers and then paraprofessionals to support those teachers, and even looking at what it might cost for transportation, because transportation is going to be impacted when we pull out that midday busing. And so what we'll want to do is keep our bus drivers, are there things that they can do within our schools that will contribute to the success of our schools? They might help with lunch duties. They might be able to help with some interventions. And that way we can keep them on as full-time drivers, with their benefits. And all of that together is another rough estimate because we don't know what insurance is going to cost, and we don't know if there will be any raises as a result of negotiations and what that would be. So around 1.1 million is what that would cost, give or take. So then staffing, it's like, do we have the people for that? And when we asked we have lots of half-time teachers, and there are 14 of them right now in our kinder programs, and we said, would you stay a full day? Would you take a full day job if we offered it to you? And 9 of them jumped and were at the chance and were thrilled that they would, if that would come down the road there. We would have about 3 positions left to open, which is really to move from part day to a full day with just 3. We can do that. So that's where what our staffing would look like. We have the facilities to do that. All of the principals assured me they have space, resources, and materials. We have about 4 classrooms where we have to work with the curriculum department to add those materials to make it a full day for all of them. When we had the parents at registration on March 31st for kindergarten registration, we were like, do we give a survey? What do we do? Well, we meet with them one-on-one. So all of the principals were to listen, what is the feel for this full-day kindergarten, for this option? And are there people who would say, I don't want that option. I want to keep, my learners home, for the other half of the day. Half day is enough. So we they tallied out and, took their comments in there. And we had 13 parents that expressed that they wanted, there were 10 schools who replied when I sent this back out again, and 13 parents had responded that, we really don't think we want a full day for our learners. Some of them were, if it's going to be full day, we might send them. Some of them were like, we're not going to. And I'm sure that there are others out there, but when we look at about 600 students who registered, and we had that comment from about 13 of them, many of them were surprised that because it had been in the news since January, that at the state level, and they really hadn't paid attention to where we were as a district, they were like, well, aren't we? That kind of thing. So they didn't know that that there's a process that we go through for that. So we are ready for any parents, to accommodate any parents that if this does go and you do approve this, we will absolutely accommodate parents who want to do a half-day model with their learners. The bulk of the morning is literacy-based, and they would get a strong literacy base. We would be able to use some things like iStation math in order, if parents wanted to do that at home with their learners, to maybe get some more math in. So we'd be able to accommodate there. But our buildings all run just a little bit differently, and so their schedules look a little different. Some of them might have an interventionist who comes into the room in the morning, and so they don't have as much morning time, so they might not have as much time to get to math in the morning. So it's hard to say, this is exactly what we're going to do across all of our schools every day. But we're open to working with parents and absolutely want to work with parents in order to meet their needs.
So you're not talking about having a full-time, and then in another room having a morning kindergarten, afternoon kindergarten. It'll be one kindergarten class essentially, and a child could either come or go in that one class.
And with those numbers that we're seeing there, I think that's more reasonable.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that have met with the principals so far, come in for registration. But that wouldn't include everybody over the summer that registers, and also it doesn't include all the students yet.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on the demand, but I would definitely, if there is enough for a class, I would want it to be a half-day class, because it doesn't work for a child to say, okay, after lunch, we're gonna do this science experiment, and then, oh, except for you. Like, that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's a really tricky balance that we're having to do there, because, you know, the buildings, as they're talking to the parents now, there's like 2 here at this building and 3 here. And then there would be this flow back and forth, because I think that, you know, probably September is going to be a little hard on our kiddos to stay all day. And then by December, January, they're going to be ready for all day, and then we've got a half-time teacher, so we're struggling with that. But we know that we do have the you know, we can have that, we want to have that flexibility to work with the parents. We currently
And
do
maybe even
that.
consolidate at a school if there's enough for a half day. Because then that second half of the day could be interventions for the lowest, more individual opportunity to, what am I trying to say? Lower numbers, because they would have the ability to pull them on a rotating basis, maybe, you know, into that.
Kind of like what we do
second
right
half
now.
of the day, just to give them additional help.
We'll keep, you know, keep track of our numbers there, and just kind of, you know, go through some different options on, you know, and we do already have some families across our district who do come part-time, you know, and then a choice that they've made, and they might homeschool the other half and all. So I don't know, we'll weigh that out and watch our numbers, and I'll keep reporting those to you, and we'll be aware of.
Because it seems like, why pay for it if they don't want it? Because it costs us more money to have more, you know, the more kids that stay, it's the more money. We can move it to something else.
Yeah,
If
we're
they
paying for that. out
If
of
there was
literacy.
enough,
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
if there was
What's
enough.
difficult is if you think about 13 learners out of 600 students. So we usually average about,
Right.
hopefully 900 is our goal. And so if we even added another 6 or 7, you're talking about 1 to 1.5 students per school potentially.
Spread across.
Yeah, so
Okay.
transportation-wise, we could not provide transportation. We would have buses running with 1 or 0 children perhaps.
So really, there's just really not the demand for it.
It would be very difficult, and even if you said, okay, self-transport, and we try to find a central location, you know, maybe after 2 months, the parent would say, oh, just go all day.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then.
Yeah,
we've
I mean,
gone
it
to-
really kind of depends
Yeah.
on the demand.
Uh-huh.
And if there is not the demand,
I
then-
would think that people are going to want to,
Right.
even if, you know, that they start out, if they say half-day, these kids would probably want to stay with their compatriots.
right, if it's a full
They're
day
not
option
gonna-
and they're taking them out for half a day, they're gonna wanna stay.
Sure. they're gonna-
So another consequence, I don't, you know, not that it's our responsibility to do this, I have a colleague who runs a daycare. And at first I thought, oh, this is gonna hurt your business because some of those kids were after school. She goes, oh no, she goes, this will now open it up. She goes, I'm turning people away all the time because they don't have space. She goes, this will now free up space that I couldn't have before. So, you know, it actually
So
helps the
there will be
community.
adjustments everywhere, I
Right.
guess. Some good and some bad.
and I think that it isn't the norm right now. Well, we do have about, you know, 300 and some of our learners who do attend, you know, the extended. And, you know, I shared this before, and I met with some kindergarten teachers yesterday, and they were worried. They're worried about, you know, the half day, because that's the part that is different, you know. And I said, so how many of you, and I asked this group, how many of your learners, do they decline when you offer half day? None. There were 5 teachers there, 5 different schools. They represented building leadership teams from 5 different schools. And none of them, decline a half-day option. They can
For
tell
the
you about
more, the more intensive
Mhm.
needs.
Yeah, and so they, so I think that's probably indicative of where people stand, there, but, we'll see, and this is new, and this is different, and I think there will be growing pains this year, and, down the road, it'll be the norm, but I think we have to be really open to listening to parents and providing them with what they need, and I think we can do that, and we can be listening if we have some big chunks at some places, and maybe it's in a neighborhood or, in an area, then we can be offering something different. I do worry that they'll, I don't know if this word, that jump ship is the one that comes to mind first, but you start in that half day, and then pretty soon, just like, Dr. Howell mentioned, you're back and wanting into that full day. We saw that
Well,
with
they
online.
would have to be locked into that, obviously. You can't just hire a new teacher halfway
Mhm.
through. They'd have to be locked into that, provided based on space.
Mhm, yeah.
I mean, if there was an opening,
Yeah, it'd
but
be-
they can't just change their mind.
That's what, we had it with our online learners, we had that before, and we had where they could, at different points, come in, but they have there's some real hard luck stories there, their daycares change, and they don't. And then you start going, oh my gosh, and then we think, what, if we can have them all day, that's better for the learners, and so then we kind of look at it that way, so there are those considerations, but I do appreciate your comments there, and we will continue to be alert to the comments that we receive so that we can be planning accordingly.
I think it's exciting. I think it's great.
And we will be at the next meeting, we'll be asking for, your, to consider the all-day kindergarten program with that option to accommodate families who have a part-time, who desire.
Thank you, Ms. Grady.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the state insurance plan update and timeline presented by Carl Smart and Courtney Fisher.
You want to join us, Brenda? She was giving me instructions back there.
So I believe I'm first up, and I'm here to share information about the survey that we did. So as you know, we first communicated to staff about the insurance topic on February 15th and just said, hey, we know this is being addressed in the legislature. We are evaluating this information. We will get back to you, just so people knew that we were here working behind the scenes addressing it. We then got together as a group to develop a communication that we called the Quick Facts, and that's included in your addendum or your board packet today. And that Quick Facts, the goal for that was to really share the information as we understand it today, or when we prepared it. That Quick Facts was distributed via district email on Wednesday, March 30th, and then we wanted to give people a couple of days to really review the information, digest it before we sent out the survey. We wanted to keep the survey very brief. We developed a 4-question survey, and we opened that up on Friday, April 1st, and kept that open for submissions through Friday, April 6th. So the Quick Facts communication and the survey results are both included in your board packet. The Quick Facts detailed, if you haven't looked at it, just really quick, it detailed the factors. There are many factors that are going to go into this decision and this recommendation, the decision-making process. We provided a side-by-side comparison of what we're offering now versus what the state plan is. And then 3 different examples and scenarios of different employee groups, part-time versus employee, and what that change might look like for those, to give people just those examples help contextualize things. And then finally, we added the links that you could just click on from the PDF to further information. Some of the questions we got when that survey went out or when this Quick Facts went out was, what is the overall, what's the prescription coverage going to be, and then is what is the maximum out-of-pocket cost. So the links that we provided really helped provide that information so that people could get a comprehensive look of what it meant for them. So we closed the survey last week, and we got a total of 638 responses. 607 of those responses, which is 95.1%, were full-time employees, and 31 part-time employees, which represented 4.9. It's difficult because not all of our part-time employees have district email. They're out in the field driving buses. So we really made a concerted effort to make sure we worked through those departments to get more responses. That's what we ended up with. The more they came in, the numbers didn't really change, so I think it still gives a pretty good overview. Reviewing the quick facts was a requirement for answering that survey. If you didn't click yes, there was a link to the quick facts in the survey. You had to click yes before you could proceed. We really wanted people to understand the information. So based on the submissions that we received, 81.7% of respondents, or 516 people, prefer to transition to the state of Idaho's insurance plan. 18.3 of those same respondents prefer to keep the district's current insurance plan. And out of 500, not everybody who submitted answered the last question. So out of 518 submissions, 41.1% of respondents noted they would elect to maintain their employee-only coverage. And 4.6% of respondents would elect to waive any district insurance coverage, which is not currently an option. And then a combined 54.3% would elect to add some sort of coverage, whether it's a spouse, child, children, or complete family, to their coverage that they don't have now. As stated in the quick facts, I think it's really important to reiterate here that this survey information is very important. We wanted to hear from staff, but it's just one piece of the puzzle as administration and superintendent works to make that recommendation for which direction for you to consider. Any questions about that information?
No, that's good.
It's interesting that over 100 didn't answer that last question. I mean, I don't know. That was
Right.
why they just
Stopped.
stopped. Yeah, that's interesting. Should have forced that question, right?
I know, make it a required. Those Google
And then
surveys,
just
they
out
they
of
get
how
me
many
every time.
employees? So 600 out of how many are in the district, roughly?
We have 1,200 lives on our medical plan.
Subs make up another 400 to 500.
Okay.
So more than half, I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty
Pretty
good,
impressive.
I was happy with that response.
And also included in your packet is a timeline of when, this is very tentative, and this is talking to Lori about her rough and that sort of thing. This is tentative. I put this together last week, and lo and behold, tomorrow the 13th, which is April 13th, we are going to have a phone call with Lockton. So we predicted that, at least that one right, Doug. So we are tomorrow afternoon have a phone call with Lockton to review the renewal and the market results that they put together over the last couple months. So we will have that information tomorrow. On Thursday, of course, we have a group of us going up to Idaho Falls to do the post-legislative tour with the State Department of Ed. And so we can start beginning to fine-tune what we know about the plan and what might be the best way to go. Of course, what we know now is the cost is going to have to play a part of it, and also the retirees. Those are the two big portions that we have to work through as we try to decipher which way do we might head. We did, over the last week or 10 days, get a renewal from Delta Dental, which of course is part of the state insurance plan. We have Delta Dental as a separate insurance package, and it's going to go up 4%. So $1.42 per employee per month, or whatever that ends up being a year. But over the course of the year, that's about $21,000 is an increase for just the dental plan for Delta Dental.
That's
So
your
that'll play-
current, that's the current dental plan?
Our current dental plan is Delta Dental of Idaho, yes. And I'm not quite sure who the dental plan is with the state insurance plan, the group plan. Probably just part of the Blue Cross network that they have, so. But you can see from the timeline, there's a lot of variables that we don't know where we're going right yet. And so, but we're hoping by next month's board meeting, we'll have everything in place when we look at kind of the last view of the budget with you and seeing how everything fits together. And in the meantime, when we get more data, we will get our insurance committee together and start sharing this information with them. And you can see there are 2 or 3 dates in there as well. And depending on when we might go, there's going to be some time that we're going to have some educational experiences with our employees to tell them how this is where we go, this is what you need to do, this is how it's going to affect you if you're going to retire next year, and all on and on and on. So those are all in this document you have in front of you tonight. And I had one other thought that popped into my head, and it popped out just as fast as it went in. But, I know what it was. Shauna, in her conversations with some of our folks that she sees, asked him if he had heard, this is our American Fidelity folks, actually, through his travels throughout the state, if he'd heard any of the districts that were going to go, and he'd only heard of 2 so far, that were for sure. So it's I think most districts are contemplating it. Well, how are they going to afford it's going to be the big question. And actually, we got information yesterday. There's a surcharge rate we've been using for employees who are not, that we have to use because we're not gonna insure all employees who are eligible. So we've been using $13,500, and actually $13,600 and some change. So it's even higher than we thought. And so that'll, again, play into our conversations as we decide how to go forward from here. So with that, I'll just, unless you have questions or any other comments, this is kind of, I'm sorry to say, we're kind of in a holding pattern.
It's a work in progress.
So you have to work in progress. So we will keep you informed.
Okay, appreciate that. Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is public written comment. I don't see any, so that concludes this meeting.